"Take that hoodie off in my courtroom," barked Judge Whitaker, his voice slicing through the stale air like a gavel. Tiana Johnson didn't flinch. She stood in front of the bench in a navy blue hoodie that read Crenshaw Science Bowl 2024, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Her public defender leaned in to whisper something, but Tiana didn't budge. Her deep brown eyes were locked onto the judge, her jaw clenched. "Miss Johnson," Whitaker said again, louder now, "I won't ask a third time." Slowly, Tiana reached up and pulled the hood down. A few gasps scattered across the room, not because of who she was, but because of the long braid that snaked down her back, the scar above her left eye, and the look in her eyes that said, "I've been through worse than you." Whitaker narrowed his eyes. Trespassing, resisting arrest, and public disorder, and quite a resume for a girl not even out of high school. She was trying to retrieve a school laptop that got locked inside her classroom, her lawyer said. The janitor didn't show. She tried a window. Whitaker chuckled dryly, adjusting his glasses. "Right. I'm sure she was just very passionate about her studies." Tiana still hadn't said a word. She wasn't about to explain herself to a man who looked at her like she was statistics instead of a person. The courtroom wasn't full, but there were enough eyes on her. White shirts, stiff ties, smirks in polished leather shoes. She felt the weight of their judgment pressing down, not for the first time. A voice from the second row pierced the silence. "Objection to tone, Your Honor." Heads turned. A tall woman in a tan suit stood up, heels clicking sharply against the tile as she walked toward the defense table. "I'm joining the defense team. Tiana's family retained me this morning." Judge Whitaker blinked. "And you are?" "Kendra Holloway, civil rights attorney. We've met." She placed a folder on the table. "Let's keep this proceeding about facts, not assumptions." The judge looked flustered for a split second, then cleared his throat. "Fine. Continue." Kendra sat beside Tiana, placing a warm hand briefly on her shoulder. "You okay?" she whispered. Tiana gave the tiniest nod. Kendra addressed the court. "Tiana Johnson is a straight A student at Crenshaw Prep. She's on the robotics team, student council, and recently won a national science competition. The only reason she entered the school after hours was to retrieve a computer with her scholarship essay on it. The school's alarm system malfunctioned, and the officer on call arrested her before asking a single question." Whitaker tapped his pen. "Even model students must obey the law, and the law must recognize when enforcement lacks judgment," Kendra shot back. "We'll be filing for a motion to dismiss based on unlawful detainment." "Motion noted," Whitaker replied curtly, but there was hesitation now. Then he glanced at the folder in front of him again. Something caught his eye. He squinted, leaned forward, and slowly turned pale. Tiana's last name, Johnson. Under the Guardian field, one name stood out in bold print: Irvin Magic Johnson. The silence returned, thick, electric. Whitaker sat back. He looked at Tiana differently now, not like a suspect, like a headline waiting to happen. Kendra smiled faintly, watching the realization settle. But Tiana wasn't smiling. Her lips barely moved as she whispered to herself, "Now you see me." The gavel came down once more, but this time it sounded more careful, less sure. Want to know what happened next? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. You won't believe how this story unfolds. By noon the next day, her name was everywhere. Magic Johnson's daughter arrested outside high school, claims racial profiling. Teen genius or troublemaker? LA courtroom scene sparks debate. Judge in hot water after comments to NBA legend's daughter. Tiana sat at the kitchen island, spooning cereal into her mouth without tasting it. The Johnsons' Brentwood home was quiet, too quiet for how big it was. The news played softly on a wall-mounted TV, but she kept her eyes on the bowl, her braid swinging slightly as she stirred. Across from her, her dad's silence was louder than anything. "Why didn't you call me?" Magic finally asked, his deep voice calm, but edged with something that cut deeper than anger. Disappointment. "I didn't want a rescue," Tiana said, still not looking up. "I wanted to see what would happen if I was just me," he sighed. "Baby, being you has never meant being alone." Tiana met his gaze then, and there it was. The father who'd taught her how to take a charge in the driveway, who brought orange slices to soccer games, who'd pulled her out of bed at 4 a.m. to watch lunar eclipses. But also the father who hadn't walked her into a single parent-teacher conference in 4 years because everyone already knew who she was. "You think people see me, Dad," she said quietly. "They see your last name. They see your shadow. That judge didn't care about me until he figured out who I belonged to." Magic set his coffee down, leaning in. "They will care. Because you're brilliant and brave and black," she cut in a hoodie, in a school after dark." He didn't argue. Instead, he reached across and took her hand. "So, what do you want to do now?" Tiana hesitated. The cereal had gone soggy. "I want to make it mean something. I want to make them listen." The doorbell rang. It was Kendra. She walked in like she owned the marble floor beneath her heels, but her tone was gentle. "I thought we should talk next steps before the media twists this into something you never meant it to be." Magic nodded and gave them space. Tiana sat back down, folding her arms. "They're already twisting it." Kendra pulled out a folder. "We can use this attention to shine a light, file a civil suit. Push for police accountability in school districts, but it means more attention, more cameras, and being ready for pushback." "I don't want to be a symbol," Tiana said. "You don't have to be a symbol," Kendra replied. "You just have to be honest." There was a pause, then Tiana said, "Can we visit the school first, E? I want to show you something." 15 minutes later, they stood in front of Crenshaw Prep. The security gate was still dented from the patrol car that had bumped it. The campus looked different now, like a place that could betray you when no one was watching. Tiana walked them around to the back, to the old computer lab window. The glass was still taped up. She pointed. "That's where I went in. My essay was on that desktop. The deadline was the next morning." Kendra looked at her. "You really broke in for an essay?" Tiana nodded. "Not just any essay, the MIT one." Kendra's eyes widened. "You applied to MIT?" Tiana just said, "They emailed me today. I made it to the finalist round, but they also saw the arrest story." Kendra was quiet for a moment. "Then we don't just fight back. We show them exactly who you are." Tiana looked at the building again. "No, we show them who we all are." The podium stood on the steps of City Hall, flanked by microphones and cameras from every local news outlet. Behind it, a cluster of familiar faces: Kendra Holloway in her sharp tan suit, Magic Johnson in a crisp navy blazer, and standing slightly off to the side, her hoodie replaced with a white blouse and black jeans, was Tiana. She had agreed to speak. Not because she wanted to, but because she knew staying silent meant letting someone else write her story. Kendra stepped up first. "Good afternoon. My name is Kendra Holloway and I represent Tiana Johnson. What happened to her last week is not an isolated incident. It is a reflection of a pattern, one that treats young black students as suspects first and scholars second." Flashes popped from the cameras. A few murmurs rose from reporters scribbling notes. "We will be filing a civil complaint against the school district and the LAPD, citing wrongful detainment and racial profiling. But more than that, we're calling for reform, starting with the way law enforcement interacts with students in educational spaces." Then she stepped back and all eyes turned to Tiana. Her heart pounded. She'd practiced the speech with Kendra a dozen times, but now that she stood here, the words felt heavier. She stepped up to the microphone. "I'm not here because I'm Magic Johnson's daughter. I'm here because I'm Tiana. And if I weren't his daughter, I probably wouldn't be standing here right now. I'd still be in court waiting for someone to believe me." A quiet ripple moved through the crowd. "When I climbed through that window, I wasn't breaking in. I was fighting to meet a scholarship deadline. I was trying to hold on to my future." She paused, her voice steady but low. "I wear hoodies. I stay late at school. I love science, and I love robotics. And none of that should ever make me look suspicious." Magic stood behind her, hands clasped, watching his daughter speak with a kind of reverence. This wasn't a basketball court. This wasn't a spotlight he'd ever known. But it was hers now. I don't want this to just be about me, Tiana continued. There are so many students who go through worse and don't have a famous last name to protect them. So if this gives us a chance to change things, then I'm using my voice. She stepped back. For a few seconds there was only silence, then a rush of questions from reporters. Do you believe Judge Whitaker should be removed from the bench? Has MIT responded to the controversy? Mr. Johnson, how does it feel watching your daughter go through this? Magic didn't step forward. Instead, he gently put a hand on Tiana's back and whispered, "This is your moment." She looked at the sea of microphones and made a choice. No comment on the judge. The system is bigger than one person. As for MIT, she said, looking straight into a camera lens, I hope they want students who speak up. If not, I'll find a school that does. That line made headlines before the conference even ended. As they stepped off the podium, Kendra leaned in. You just flipped the whole narrative, Tiana nodded, adrenaline buzzing beneath her skin. But as they made their way to the car, a figure was waiting by the steps. A young girl, maybe 14, wearing a worn-out hoodie, clutched a notebook to her chest. She looked up at Tiana with wide eyes. I saw the video. You made me feel like I can say something too. Tiana smiled softly. Then do it. Your voice matters. The girl nodded and ran off. And just like that, Tiana knew this fight wasn't just hers anymore. 2 weeks later, a thick white envelope arrived at the Johnson household. Tiana held it in her hands, barely breathing. Her name was printed in bold serif font above the return address, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. No Mr. Johnson's daughter, just Tiana Marie Johnson. She didn't open it right away. She just stared, sitting alone at the dining table, the sun streaming through tall windows, her legs bouncing beneath her chair. Kendra had warned her the media noise could affect her application. Admissions departments didn't like controversy, no matter how unfair. Finally, she peeled it open. Her eyes scanned the first line. Dear Tiana, congratulations. She stopped, exhaled, clutched the letter to her chest. She was in. No cameras, no reporters, just a quiet moment with her future. An hour later, Magic returned home from a meeting. She handed him the letter without a word. He read the first few lines, then looked up, eyes misty. You did it. Tiana nodded, biting back a grin. We did it. But before they could even celebrate, his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, frowned, then handed it to her. It was a news alert. Judge Whitaker speaks out. I was set up to fail in a media circus. Tiana read the quote again. He's blaming us. He's covering his ass, Magic said. You embarrassed him. He's trying to spin it. I didn't do anything but tell the truth. And that, her dad said, is exactly what some people can't handle. That night, Tiana and Kendra met up again, this time in a small diner off La Brea. No suits, no cameras, just mismatched booths and the smell of grilled onions. Kendra slid into the seat across from her, holding up her phone. He's on a full-blown PR tour. Said he was caught off guard by your identity and regrets the courtroom tone. Tiana stirred her straw in a glass of lemonade. He regrets being caught. Maybe, Kendra said. But there's more. She pulled out a manila envelope and handed it to Tiana. This is from the mayor's office. The City Youth Equity Task Force is looking for young advisors. They want you. Tiana raised an eyebrow. Me? You. Not the daughter of. Not the headline. You. Tiana didn't answer right away. Her fingers ran over the envelope. Do I want to spend my first year of college still talking about this? She asked. Kendra smiled softly. That's up to you. But sometimes the people closest to the problem are the ones best equipped to fix it. Tiana folded the envelope and slid it into her backpack. I'll think about it. They finished their food and walked outside into the warm LA night. The city hummed around them, streetlights flickering, music drifting from passing cars, and laughter echoing from a bus stop down the street. Tiana looked up at the stars barely visible through the haze. This started with me climbing through a window, she said quietly. Kendra chuckled. And now doors are opening. But it's not over, is it? No, Kendra replied, and that's the point. They stood there in silence for a while. Then Kendra added, there's one more thing. She pulled out her phone and showed Tiana a short clip. It was that same girl from the courthouse, the one with the notebook. She was now standing in front of her own school, addressing a crowd with trembling hands, but clear conviction. She's organizing a student forum, Kendra said. Said she was inspired by you. Tiana smiled, more to herself than anyone else. This wasn't just a moment, it was a movement. The stage lights at the MIT Orientation Auditorium were blinding, but Tiana didn't need to see the crowd to feel their energy. Hundreds of first-year students packed the room, buzzing with ambition, nerves, and hope. She adjusted the mic. Her speech had been chosen for the student welcome address, not because she was famous, not because of the headlines, but because she'd earned it. My name is Tiana Johnson, she began, steady but calm, and like many of you, I've worked hard to be here, but unlike most of you, I started my journey to MIT not with an acceptance letter, but with a mugshot. A ripple moved through the crowd. Tiana paused, letting the truth settle. It wasn't my grades or my test scores that got me in front of a judge that day. It was a hoodie, a skin color, and a locked classroom window. She let that hang just long enough. But here's the thing. Sometimes the worst moments are the ones that show you who you really are and who you're going to be. The room was silent, listening. No one fidgeted. No one checked their phone. I used to think being seen meant staying invisible until I got where I was going. Play it safe. Don't make waves, but staying silent didn't protect me, speaking up did. She smiled, not with defiance, but with peace. And I learned that the things people try to use against you, your name, your past, your neighborhood, can become the very things that fuel your future. She closed with one line, the one she'd written the night before, long past midnight in her dorm room. Don't just earn your seat at the table. Bring a folding chair for someone else. Applause exploded. Her words echoed down the rows and into the halls. Afterward, she stepped off stage and made her way through a line of congratulations. Professors, students, staff. But it was a young black girl, maybe 12, who caught her attention. She had slipped in with a parent and now clutched a worn MIT hoodie in her hands. Can I take a photo with you? The girl asked. Tiana crouched beside her and smiled. Of course. As the camera clicked, the girl whispered, I want to go here someday too. Tiana smiled. You will. Just keep showing up. Later that week, Tiana got word that Judge Whitaker had been placed under formal review. The mayor's office confirmed an oversight committee would examine his past cases involving juveniles. No guarantees, but accountability was inching forward. Meanwhile, her inbox was full, not just with welcome emails and class schedules, but with messages from students across the country. Kids who'd seen the video, kids who'd been profiled, kids who'd felt invisible until her story made them feel seen. She replied to as many as she could. Each one reminded her it had never just been about the courtroom. It was about every kid who stayed late to finish a project, every teen who looked like a suspect before they opened their mouth, every quiet voice waiting to speak up. One night, as the Boston breeze pushed through her open dorm window, she sat on her bed and opened her laptop. On the screen was a video thumbnail. What happened in that courtroom? Tiana Johnson breaks her silence. She clicked upload, then looked directly into the camera. If you've ever felt like who you are isn't enough, if you've ever been judged before you could speak, this story is for you. She paused, let it settle. And if you made it this far, she added with a small smile, go ahead and subscribe and check out the video on your screen. It was picked just for you, and I promise you're going to love it. Fade out.